Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, brought to you by Bet365, a proud partner of Canucks Conversation. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you sign up for an account. My name is Dave Woodrelli. I am joined by Harman Dial, and I thought we were only going to talk about a Canucks versus Jets game today, but we've got some news this morning, and you call it news? I think you call it news. Some headlines coming out thanks to both Patrik, Allvin and Rick Tocchet. Let's not waste any time. Let's just dive right into this on this Tuesday afternoon. Harman, it started for me with the story in The Athletic, which of course you read, between Pierre Lebrun and Canucks GM Patrik Allvin. Obviously the GM meetings are going on right now down in Florida, so those two had a conversation. The story drops, and the quote, we can pull this up, technical producer Jacob Lazar at the controls early here. We're getting started right away. It starts with this quote from Allvin where he's talking about Rick Tocchet. He's asked about Rick Tocchet, who has become more of a conversation point in recent weeks, and certainly today is one. This is the quote from Allvin. He said, well, I think Rick Tocchet has done an impressive job under the circumstances here this season. He's well liked by the players. He's a great communicator and also has the ability to hold guys accountable. We have a club option, but I sure hope that he's going to be part of this organization moving forward. That's a conversation that I hope will get to the finish line here sooner rather than later. The club option's a story. We're going to talk about that as well. But the big thing here, as we kind of lay out the timeline of events and everything, is that last line. That's a conversation that I hope we'll get to the finish line here sooner rather than later. Just hours later, Rick Tocchet goes on Sportsnet 650 in a pre-planned interview. It's the Canucks for Kids Fund telethon night, so that's why he was doing 650. But of course, he was asked about coaching the Canucks down the road, and this is what he had to say. Not even in response. I don't think he was given the context in the interview of Allvin's quote. He was just asked, like, hey, where are you at when it comes to signing with this team down the road? This is what Tocchet said. For me, I'm an all-in guy. It's not a chicken shit answer. Well, actually, he didn't swear. Sorry, he didn't swear in the actual interview. I think he said, it's not a chicken, you know what I'm saying, answer. It's, I'm all in on the trying to get this team into the playoffs, trying to, build the energy level. I just think it's better to wait for me so we can really sit down and talk, because I have no time to talk about my contract, in the sense that, what I want to do in some sense, because I'm all in with this team right now. Some typos in the transcription, it looks like. But he was talking about how he has no time to talk contract right now. And this quote continued. Bring up part two here. He said, it'll get done at the appropriate time. That's really what it is. I can't really concentrate on that stuff. Every day we come in, we're really concentrated on a lot of different things. I'm very comfortable, and I think they are too, that when it's the appropriate time, we can spend some time and really dive in on where we're going, what we're going to do, and things like that. I think that's really the best answer I can give you guys. So frame it however you want. At the end of the day, the headline is that Tocchet isn't wanting to talk to the Canucks about a contract in season, which is fine. It's his right to do. I'm not going to disagree with you if you point out that that's strange to see from an NHL head coach, because it certainly looks like the team wants to sign him.
Well, I think it makes sense for both sides to wait until the end of the season. There are still a lot of things that the Canucks need to make decisions on, big picture with this franchise headed into the summer. I mean, first of all, the most important domino is Elias Pettersson's future. Right? Are they going to commit to keeping him around and building the team around him and Hughes? Are they looking at that July 1st point when his NMC kicks in as we got to find a way to potentially shop him at the draft and get out under that contract while we still have team control? And that would mean a different set of priorities heading into the offseason. There are just so many questions with the roster itself, right? Even Brock Besser's future. That how can you possibly decide on the head coach's future when you don't even know what the top of your lineup looks like up front? And I think that's massive, right? Because if you're Rick Tocchet, you want to know who your guys are. Because if it's Elias Pettersson, your reputation as a head coach, your success as a head coach comes down to your star level players delivering. So what's Tocchet's comfort level with Pettersson being his guy moving forward? What's the Canucks pitch as far as that forward group? How is it going to be remodeled? Because I'll be honest, if I'm Tocchet, and this is the type of top six I have next season, are you being set up in a position to succeed? Right. If I'm talking, I want management to give me a strong blueprint and vision on this is how we're going to rebuild the top six so you have more weapons to play with. And even from management's perspective, you've got to make a decision on if you're keeping Elias Pettersson, is Rick Tocchet the right head coach for a lot of these core guys. Is this front office a fan of this low event, trying to grind out 2-1 type of victories, or do they want to go in a different direction? Do they want to be a team that's faster, more dynamic off the rush, which would mean going in a different direction philosophically in how you play? That's why there are just so many big picture questions with this team, with the construction, with their playing style, that it doesn't make sense for either side, in my opinion, to really commit beyond the season.
Hang on a sec. And not to put words in anyone's mouth, but don't forget at the trade deadline, Patrik Allvin was asked about this play style and this low event hockey, and he went hard for Rick Tocchet and the play style that the Canucks are playing, talking about fans want to see wins. We're at the top of the league in terms of defending and penalty kill in that time. So yeah, we're not scoring a ton of goals, but like he went hard at it. So I don't know. I'm just saying, like, this seems like a Rick Tocchet decision right now, at least. And again, we highlighted that line at the end of the Allvin quote where he said, that's a conversation that I hope will get to the finish line here sooner rather than later. Like, to me, that doesn't read like, yeah, we also want to wait till the offseason to figure this out. And I get what you're saying, that there's advantages to it, but like this management regime seems to really like Rick Tocchet.
I agree. The thing you have to weigh, though, is Tocchet's playing style. And I've been very clear. I think he's a good head coach. I don't necessarily think he's an elite head coach, but I don't think that, for example, if you're searching for a head coach in the summer and free agency, that you're going to find somebody who's a massive upgrade on Rick Tocchet. I just don't think that's realistic. But in having said that, one thing you have to bear in mind is Tocchet's playing style is very taxing to play. It requires max effort, north-south style, a ton of attention to detail. You're not really incentivized to take many risks with the puck. Here's the thing: players like playing a high-octane offensive style. It's just the fact of the matter. I've had conversations with Jake DeBrusk about it. It's not exactly a secret that it's more fun to play a style where players can be a little bit more freewheeling. You can have success with the way Tocchet plays, but at a certain point too, there's like, how long is the shelf life of actually getting that 100% buy-in and commitment? Because last year we raved about the buy-in and the commitment level of, wow, watch the forwards on the back check, how hard they're hustling, their commitment to winning battles along the boards, their forecheck. It's hard to sustain that type of blue collar identity over an 82 game season and then in the playoffs. And I wonder, is this group able to have success with that style, with the same voice long term? And I don't think that's even an indictment on Tocchet. It's also, does this core group have the maturity level to fully buy in? Because we've seen, right, they tuned out Travis Green at a certain point. And I'm not here suggesting that Tocchet's lost the room, but how many times has Tocchet this season expressed frustration that they'll have a game plan or something they want the players to execute, and the players for whatever reason aren't able to execute? So that's something you have to weigh in mind if you're the organization as well.
Okay, so this pivoted a bit. Again, I brought up the Tocchet quotes. I brought up the Allvin quotes. There's another Allvin quote, and I think I'll save that for anyone else. It's about acquiring a center. We'll get to that, I think, in anyone else. I wanted to get to some reaction from the chat here. We had A. Kips in the chat who said, hope Tocchet stays. It's just management didn't supply him with sufficient top players. People starting to talk about the game as well, which, don't worry, folks, we are going to do. Chat's bumping early, which makes me want to tell you about our super chats, more specifically our super chat charity partner, the BC Mental Health Foundation. Want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show? Hit us with a super chat. Proceeds from our super chat will go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. Hit us with a super chat. This one's from Mike Weller. It's a good one. we could have saved it for anyone else, but I want to get to it now, Harm, because it is a topical question right now. This one's from Mike, regulars from the show. He said, how many other teams play a Tocchet style and have done it long term? Top of my head, I'm trying to think of a team that just grinds it out defensively. And
well, a big part of it too is the dump and chase style, right?
Mhm.
I think like Florida is an example. Their evolution under Andrew Burnett, there were this high octane rush offensive team. They were so much fun. They were so speedy. They realized that, hey, we don't think this style translates in the playoffs. They fired Burnett, brought in Paul Maurice, and they play this heavy forechecking north-south type style. Now the roster they have is way better than what the Canucks have at their disposal. I mean, their top six is stacked with talent, so you don't see the offensive deficiencies as much, but they play that heavy forecheck north-south style. The Leafs under Craig Berube, that's what they've sort of transitioned to, is this low event defense first playing style. The New Jersey Devils, now that they've brought Sheldon Keefe in, that was a big part of their identity shift too, was the Devils were this fast, speedy team off the rush, but they wanted to evolve, become tighter defensively. That's a big reason they missed the playoffs last year. And under Keefe, they've played a lot more conservatively. So, that's another example. I think generally, Mike Kelly, sorry, my mic cut out there for a second. Mike Kelly from Sportlogic brought some data out through the first 6 weeks of the season where, because Florida had won the Stanley Cup with this heavy dump and chase style, he pointed out that nearly every team was dumping the puck in more often than they were the previous season. The league generally is trending towards dump and chase. And to me, I think a big part of the limitations are the personnel itself, especially when your franchise centerman, who's supposed to be a 90 to 100 point player, is playing at like a 50-point pace.
I asked everybody, when it comes to the poll question today, I asked people just to give their take on if Tocchet should be back next year. We asked pretty point blank, and we're going to get to the poll question in a sec. But I did see probably the most balanced take that I can imagine about Rick Tocchet is just like, I think he's a really good coach. I just don't know if he's the right coach for this team. And I'm not saying I agree with that, but I think the people who do doubt Tocchet probably think that to some extent. There are some people that are just like, no, he's a horrible coach. They're not going to ever create offense under Rick Tocchet. But one thing he said in that 650 interview, when he was asked about his play style, he said, like, I don't know if we have the team, if we have a team that can open it up. Let's not forget, they found success last year and the team got worse. They came in this year hoping to create more off the rush. That came from Rick Tocchet, wanted to create more off the rush, quickly realized they wouldn't be able to do that. And that project basically got put on pause. And that comes down to roster construction, if you ask me. So I don't know exactly how I feel about it, but I'm curious how the people feel about it. Let's get to our poll question, which is brought to you by Pacific Toyota dealers, who want to tell you about the 100% electric Toyota BZ4X, an SUV packed with plenty of space. The BZ4X can handle any terrain and can take you from the city to the slopes. Plus, if you're driving a BZ4X, you get access to HOV lanes, even if you're driving alone. When you choose the BZ4X, you can get up to $6,500 in rebates and incentives, and now you can finance a 2025 BZ4X from 3.29% APR for 36 months. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. All right, poll question. Let's bring it up. It was simple. Do you want Rick Tocchet to return as the Canucks head coach next season? Harmon, 63% of voters say yes, 37% say no. I don't have a super hard take on this. Like, if management came out and said, hey, we have this other guy that we really like and we brought him in and we think he's going to help open up the offense, I'm not going to be sitting here saying they should have kept Rick Tocchet. If they bring back Rick Tocchet, I'm not going to be sitting here saying they should have brought in this guy. This is one of those things that I don't think I have a super hard take on. And I could be very easily sold on whichever path the team takes or whatever people are arguing. I think there's good arguments on both sides. And I hate to both sides an issue, because you know how much I love to just have my take and stand by it. I don't have a very hard take on Rick Tocchet. I just don't. And I'd be lying if I said I did. I think he's a fine coach. I don't know who else would bring it. I don't know. And it's like you said, like when you look at the free agent coaches, who's going to come in to replace Rick Tocchet that you like more? I again, pull it up. My blame pie chart, right? For those that missed it, 40% players, 35% management, and 25% coaching. So, like, I'm not saying it's silly to even be talking about this and talking about Rick Tocchet, because obviously this is a story. That's why we're talking about it. But on my blame-o-meter of like, okay, what do I think is going to fix things more? I think new players is going to fix things more. I think better decisions by management is going to fix things more than whatever happens with Rick Tocchet, whether he comes back or doesn't come back. I stand by that those things are going to matter more.
I really keep coming back to this Pettersson conversation as well. Because if you're Rick Tocchet, this has to be a mutual decision on both sides. To put it this way, the Canucks have a club option, but if Tocchet is lukewarm about staying in Vancouver beyond the season, you don't want him as your head coach, right? You got to have a head coach that's fully invested, fully bought in. So this is going to have to be a mutual decision where both sides really want to make things work. And I truly wonder how much of it rests on Pettersson, where I wish I could give Rick Tocchet some truth serum and ask him, what do you think the odds are of Pettersson bouncing back as a point per game centerman next season? Because if he's confident that PD's going to rebound, then all of a sudden, I think if you combine that with management presumably telling him that, hey, here's the plan for landing another high-end top six centerman, another impact winger. We're going to get you some more weapons. All of a sudden, it's a compelling case for Tocchet to want to return. But if he isn't the biggest fan of PD, again, you're staking your reputation, your future earnings, your resume on whether your star player can come through, because he's going to be EP40 next season. If he's back, is going to be a massive driver, one way or the other, of whether this team is successful or not. If he's not sold on Pettersson and management is saying we believe in this guy, we're going to keep him next year, then Tocchet probably would lean towards not wanting to come back.
Tocchet said Pettersson's a good kid. That's what he's saying.
What was he going to say? He's a bad kid?
There's a headline. You're right, Harm. This is a big part of the equation. It's a big part of the question. Speaking of equations,
Demko too, man.
Well, obviously,
to a lesser extent, but
yeah. Demko's on the trip. Demko's going to be going on the road trip. That's what Tocchet said today. We talked about practice time for Demko. He was a full participant in morning skate. He had a net today. Artur Shilovs did not have a net. He was the third goalie on the ice. Kevin Lankinen starts against the Jets. We're going to talk about that in a second here, but I want to get to this comment from Ty's Hockey Talk, who's talking about my pie chart. He said, there's no ownership on your blame pie chart. Now I have to make a new pie chart that includes ownership, but I think it's safe to just throw management and ownership into the same part of the pie, right?
I mean, it's almost like this pie chart, like you have the ownership circle, and then it's like this fits completely inside of that circle, right? Ownership has control over all of this stuff. So
yeah, that's a good point. All right, I'm going with Jacob said. I'm not making a new pie chart.
Yeah, it's like you can put any of those segments and tie it back to ownership pretty quickly with what we know about how the Canucks are operating these days. I was trying to stall while Harmon was fixing his mic. There we go. He's back. He's ready.
She did. Crushed it.
Canucks ownership also ranked 31st in the Athletics owner rankings. Terry Pagula of the Buffalo Sabres was the only owner that were ranked worse than Francesco Aquilini.
I'm surprised you wanted to bring that up, because I wasn't even going to bring that up. You, of all people, wanting to bring that up.
Why would I not? It was done at the Athletic, and hey, I didn't do it. I didn't write that story. It was a mix of a fan survey and James Myrtle's own sort of reporting.
I like it.
Not only were the Canucks 31st, but like other than Buffalo, every team was at least at a C, and the Canucks are at a D+. Like that's a pretty big step. Like the step between Calgary and Vancouver is pretty big when you look at how bunched up the rest of the teams are.
I mean, this is the thing. If you don't have a practice facility, You're gonna rank low automatically.
Well,
I mean,
and that's why Vancouver and Calgary are down there, right? Because neither has a practice facility.
Yeah, there's more involved. Obviously, it's not. It doesn't just come down to.
I think it's the direction that.
Yeah, I don't think the team's skyrocketing to an A if they get a practice facility. But I've been thinking about the practice facility. Now I got to bring it up. I was going to save it for anyone else. No, I wasn't even going to save it for anyone else. I wasn't even talking about it. But I was talking to someone the other day. We were just talking about a practice facility. And yes, we get it. Like, land is expensive in Vancouver. No need to bring up the whole Plaza of Nations thing where at the time they're like, oh, it's too expensive. And now if they did it back then, it would have looked like an absolute steal of a deal for what that land is going for now. I don't think land is getting cheaper in Vancouver, is what I'm trying to say. So I just wonder what the plan is, what the holdup is. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is where I'm going. And I know they're gonna try to get creative, which is probably what I would do too. Owner Quad's hat on, I would probably try to get creative. Again, we've talked about the SFU thing. That's probably not gonna happen. The changes at SFU, which we've talked about, but you know, you're probably gonna have to get creative, which is fine. But like, do it. Let's go. Like, get creative now, right? I'm just starting to wonder, okay, what's the holdup? And if the holdup is just land is expensive in Vancouver, it's like, okay, well, do you even want to be in Vancouver then? Like, what are we talking about here? Yes, land is expensive in Vancouver, but when you're the only team in a league that doesn't have a practice facility, all of a sudden and there's people already, I'm sure, that are going to say, oh, this doesn't matter. No one cares. It's like, yes, players do care. This matters when it's recruiting. How many times did Rick Tocchet bring up, oh, I love having 2 sheets of ice at training camp out in Penticton, right? Like, it matters. It does matter. It absolutely does. And anyways,
I can tell you, I don't think players love the idea of when Rogers is unavailable for practices, having to go all the way out to UBC. The facilities just aren't up to par. It's far distance wise. It's really not ideal.
Conversation saying it's going to be near BCIT when it gets done, just south of the Willingdon exit. You know how much of a fan I am of moving things to Burnaby. Everybody should be moving to Burnaby. Get as much as you can into Burnaby.
Not biased at all, hey?
Well, and you know what, though, when you bring that up, that's right where EA Vancouver is. They make the NHL games there. If you got the facility, you get EA involved, you know, like they have that facility to use when they're doing stuff for the NHL video games. You can bring in some extra money that way. Just saying that could work.
Not all Burnabys are made the same. What's the cutoff of South Burnaby and North Burnaby? Because I'm a fan of bringing things to North Burnaby, but if you're talking South Burnaby,
I think that's Central Burnaby. You're kind of in that gray area, right in between. And
if I look at a riding map, technically it's in the Burnaby South riding, so I'm way less passionate about it, but still Burnaby.
Why do you like Burnaby South way less than North?
See, Harm, it's a suburb thing.
It's very complicated, is all I'll say.
But
spend time in both places, and you just tell me. Like, there's trophies in North Burnaby, so there's point for Burnaby. I grew up in North Burnaby, as you might have been able to tell. I don't know. When I think of South Burnaby, I just think like Metrotown and it all being so crowded and the parking lots not being big enough. And I mean, Brentwood Mall is getting really crowded too, and I don't like what they've done to the Brentwood area.
You don't like what they've done to the Brentwood area? I think Brentwood is sick.
Way too crowded. No, way too.
It's so sick.
Quads doesn't like his groups of people. We know that.
You understand. I just move furthest away from the people as much as possible. Like, if I would just keep moving east as much as possible. I don't like crowds, man. I like being alone. I like being in nature.
Too good for the common folk, hey, Quads?
That's right. The commoners. I always say it. I always say it. And that's the thing. Jeremy Lee, bang on. Burnaby's becoming Vancouver. And of course, Harmon would love that. With the busyness. And why do you like the Brentwood area?
It's cool, man.
It is
you can't drive through it anymore. You can't even drive through it anymore.
The rec room there is
always
so
backed
sick.
up. Okay, I like rec room. But the area is always backed up. There's too many people.
And I haven't seen it be too bad.
Quads, going back to your point, like I grew up in Port Coquitlam, and North Poco versus South Poco, definitely it's the same thing. The railroad tracks divide it. And if you're from South Poco, like you had a rivalry with the people from North Poco. That's just how it was. It is absolutely a thing.
Also, Burnaby South used to kick all of our asses in basketball. Burnaby South was so good at basketball. I remember that from high school.
Well, that was the same thing. Like in Poco, there was Terry Fox on the north side, Riverside on the south side. Terry Fox would when it came to boys sports, would slaughter Riverside. But Riverside had good girls sports for a while.
People complaining about Port Moody in the chat now. Oh, this is interesting. Yeah, and Conversation agrees with me here. Brentwood sucks, soulless. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like
Fun haters.
No, I don't know. I don't like all these towers, man. I don't like all these towers. I don't. As I say, from living in a tower, but not for long. Not for long. Okay. Where were we? We're not even in anyone else yet, and we just went so off the rails. Okay, we're gonna get back to city planning later if people want to hear it. But what people really came to hear today, Harm, is us talk about tonight's game between the Vancouver Canucks and the Winnipeg Jets, a potential playoff preview, round 1 of the playoffs. These two teams could face off. Okay, the last time these two teams faced, it was a 6-1 loss for the Canucks, a natural hat trick for Kyle Connor. And the Canucks followed that up. You remember this? With a pretty soulless loss to the LA Kings, where I remember coming on here the next day and saying, I think that's JT Miller's last game as a Canuck. I think he ended up playing like 7 or 8 more after that, but that was the game where there was just no back checking, flies out to the point against Kevin Fiala and just doesn't even, it was a bad game for JT Miller. But my point is that was a low point in the Canucks season the last time these two teams faced. They face off again tonight. What are you expecting to see?
Yeah, before we touch on the game itself, a few notes from morning skate. I was there. Garland's a game time decision. Tocchet said, and not just because of the shot block from last game, but Tocchet was saying Garland's been banged up and playing through multiple knocks, which is useful context because he hasn't been as impactful over the last 30 games, both in terms of offensive production and driving play as he was through the first half of the season. So that's interesting. It wasn't just a shot block. He's been nursing a couple ailments. I still saw him around the rink, and knowing how Garland is wired, I wouldn't be surprised if he plays through the pain and just tries to will his way through. But he's a game time decision on the blue line. DPD is going to draw in for Victor Mancini, which I saw a lot of people complaining about. Why not take Forbert out, have both of those young defenders in? I actually disagree. We gave Mancini his flowers last Friday for his performance against the Flames, and overall he's been steady. But I thought against Utah, there were several plays that just died on his stick in the offensive zone. I think that was Mancini quietly his worst game. It wasn't egregiously bad, but when you contrast how many plays he missed in the offensive end versus Derek Forbert, I thought was rock solid in that game defensively. He had a huge shot block a couple times in the second period, including on one of Utah's 2-on-1 chances. You're going up against a Jets team that has the best power play in the NHL. Forbert's a huge part of the PK. So I'm going to push back against fans arguing that Mancini shouldn't have been the one to come out for DPD. I actually agree with the decision. And then Pettersson and Besser are going to be back together on the line.
Good updates. We don't get the rink updates from you. This is great. This is great. We didn't even have Jeff on the show today. Jeff's going to be on tomorrow, but we got our rink updates from you. We lost Armin's mic, which is starting to become a regular thing on this show.
I was told Jeff just got his new mic and it's wireless and it has like a detachable lav mic. So we'll have to get Harmon hooked up with one of those.
Please, it's the wires. The mic it's fine. The wire is just awful. You move it a little bit and it just disconnects. Lekramacky on PP1 if Garland doesn't play on the left half wall. I'm excited for that too.
Love it. Love it. Okay. What else do we got here? Okay, yeah, from the rink. Did we talk about Lekramacky enough? I don't think so. Lekramacky, PP1. We talked about it yesterday, that we really wanted to see him get that look. And I'm not going to disagree with your Derek Forbert take. We talked about him a lot yesterday. Agree with you there. Yeah, I'm a really big fan of this move to get Lekramacky on PP1, because here's the thing that we didn't really talk about yesterday when we were talking about Tocchet's, puck's got to get low type thing on the power play. Like, if you get low on a power play, right? If you get the puck low, teams just make that adjustment, right? Unless you're ready to move the puck into the bumper. That's kind of how it works on the power play. And if the Canucks don't have a bumper threat, teams are just going to collapse and take away that that cross ice pass. It's almost like moving from like if you're defending in a diamond. Can I write this out? Do you know what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm getting at though? Like when it comes to penalty killing philosophy, like if teams are defending in a diamond, right? If you move the puck low, they're just going to adjust and become a square, right? And then they take away that low pass. You have no passing option. The thing that gives you the advantage down low is that you have a guy who then kind of creeps into the bumper spot and he's ready to strike. That's what made the Canucks power play so effective when Bo Horvat was here, because he was so good in the bumper. It was that teams had to contest with the cross crease pass, but then they also had to contest with the bumper. But right now the Canucks have no threat in the bumper. Lekkerimäki can become that threat in the bumper, I think. So I really like getting him in there.
Yeah, he was on the left flank with Brock in the bumper. Now, those guys, I expect them to move. We've seen with this Canucks power play that it's not as if this is the bumper guy. He's stuck in the bumper for the entire 2 minutes. And like Pettersson, for example, we've seen him both on the left half wall, the right half wall. Sometimes he'll even interchange with Hughes at the point. I think what's interesting too is JT, in my mind, as a playmaker, running things from the left circle, is really good at getting the bumper involved. Especially coming down the half wall, where sometimes he would sell the threat of his own shot, and he would hit Brock with a little sort of like slap pass, redirect attempt. JT was this team's best playmaker at finding those looks in the bumper. And you're right, they haven't really had that consistent shooting threat from the middle of the ice since JT has been traded. So you're hoping Lekkerimäki first can help with zone entries, where if they have to go back, they haven't had forwards who can just handle the puck, make poised plays under pressure. You're hoping Lekkerimäki can contribute there. And then for the power play group as a whole too, they got to start winning faceoffs. It's a massive difference when you're able to get set up right away off a draw versus when the other team gets that first clear and now you're having to deal with entries and all that, all those challenges getting set up in the first place.
Final thing I want to say about the Jets in particular, they're playing Connor Hellebuyck too much. He's going to choke in round one of the playoffs. Canucks moving on to round two.
Wow. Okay.
Thoughts?
Not buying that.
He is playing too much.
I agree with that. I agree with that. That's a complaint I've had with the way the Jets have managed Hellebuyck in the past.
And what's happened after that in the past?
Yeah, they've given him a heavy workload. They're one of the few teams that relies on this. We're going to ride our starter heavy, and we have a traditional backup who's only going to play high teens worth of games in a season. And I don't think it's just fatigue that catches up with Hellebuyck. Part of it is looking at the way Colorado exposed Winnipeg's defense with east-west passing movement, which is a weakness of Hellebuck's game. There's a strategic tactical element to it as well. But you're right, workload-wise, he's played too much. Jets are interesting because they're a little bit different from most contenders where they're not led by a McKinnon or McDavid level star, but they're just such a deep, well-rounded team. Their forward depth is elite. That's the issue that you run into with teams like the Oilers and the Avs is they have that superstar game-breaking talent on the top line, but their secondary scoring can be questionable. They're top-heavy teams, whereas the Jets, on the top line, Connor and Scheifele have still been really productive, even though they're not in that elite tier of first lines. That second line, though, Ehlers has been a dynamo. Cole Perfetti has 17 points in his last 19 games. And then this is the point. This is the thing you recognize about the Jets is their third line of Lowry, Niederreiter, and Appleton is one of the most underrated lines in the NHL. They don't get much fanfare because they're not a high point producing, sexy type of line. But the way they forecheck all three bodies, elite defensively, play shutdown minutes, and can chip in with secondary offense, they're just so hard to play against. They're impossible to score on. They're physical. They drive play. They decisively win their matchups. Most teams don't have a third line that's as effective as that one. Then you tack on top of that having the best power play in the NHL. On the back end, it's been huge that Dylan Sandberg has emerged as a shutdown star. He's in my mind one of the most underrated defensemen in the NHL. He's a guy to watch if you're a Canucks fan. That maybe if you haven't watched a ton of Jets games this year, watch Dylan Sandberg. He was playing sheltered third pair minutes last year. Brendan Dillon leaves in the offseason, and now he's been an absolute star. He's a great shutdown defenseman. He's the perfect number 2 behind Josh Morrissey. He drives his own pair. They're just so hard to score on, the Jets, especially like not just because of Hellebuck, but how well they've evolved defensively.
And that's what really makes an elite defensive team. And I mean, saw with the Canucks as well, is you defend well, and then when there's cracks, you have that guy back there to back you up. Like, you have Thatcher Demko back there, you have Andrei Vasilevsky back there, you have Connor Hellebuck back there. You're going to be okay, even if you make the odd mistake defensively. Whereas a team like the Oilers, they make a mistake defensively, or they play fine defensively and the puck still ends up in the back of their net. Like, that's the difference to me. Okay. Anything else you want to say about the Jets as we kind of move on here to anyone else?
No, I'm just excited to see the special teams matchup, right? The Jets elite power play versus the Canucks league best PK since Feb 1. That'll be a huge matchup. And the other thing for the Canucks in this game is last time they played Winnipeg, there were way too many self-inflicted wounds. Kevin Lankinen, I think, had a puck handling error. The defense got split on one of Kyle Connor's goals in the first period. They just, as much as Winnipeg played well, the Canucks also just shot themselves straight in the foot. They just cannot do that. And this is going to be a tough one, but they sort of need it. They've got St. Louis in town, or not in town. They're going out to St. Louis on Thursday. That's going to be a huge head-to-head 4-point game. I worry about the Canucks' ability to generate offense against the Jets tonight. They really need Pettersson Brock to find some chemistry. Otherwise, they are going to be way too reliant on Quinn to drive the bus.
Yep. Those two together. Canucks' final home game before a really long road trip where they head out to New York. Really, this road trip will be one that decides their fate. So lots of important hockey coming up for the Canucks. Let's get to anyone else, which is brought to you by our friends over at Greta Bar YVR, the home of our electric watch parties. Greta's a great spot for all games, home and away, conveniently located just minutes from the arena. Make Greta your pre, post, or main spot to chill next time you're downtown. With drinks, the iconic street food menu, and of course the arcade games, head on down to Greta today. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. Okay. Super chat. I wanted to get to this one first. This was from Brebeck, who said, do you agree the Canucks need to offer sheet a top center? Thank you for the donation to the BC Mental Health Foundation. This is a great thing to kick off anyone else with, because I was going to bring this up, that in the story with Lebrun that we focused on the Tocchet angle of, Allvin also said the Canucks are definitely, quote, that's a quote, definitely going to address their weakness at the center ice position this offseason. And Allvin said whether that's through trade or free agent signing, the Canucks are going to address it. So you look at the crop of free agents, I don't think there's anyone in free agency that they can address that with. Obviously, trades, it's hard to pinpoint, okay, who could they go after? And there's going to be a lot of names that got brought up in the chat. But any RFAs you like? Because we did hear Frank Saravalli maybe a month or two ago came on the show, and he was talking about how after the Broberg and Holloway offer sheets last offseason, there were owners that went to their GMs and said, like, hey, why are we not in on this? Why are we not offer sheeting players? And that there is a directive from some ownership groups to be more active in the offer sheet game. And I think it's going to be something we see more of this offseason. Are there any names that stand out for you that you look at and say, okay, I would like to see the Canucks go offer sheet this player?
Yeah, I have to. I'm looking through the RFA list right now. First of all, I think it's going to be more difficult than usual to pull off successful offer sheets, simply because there's more, like, with the cap going up, teams have more flexibility to match. Think about why the Blues were able to get Holloway and Broberg. It's because they were perfectly able to target mid-range guys after the Oilers had already done their shopping in free agency. I think a big that is just the Oilers having bundled that, and it's going to be tougher to put teams in that type of bind, given that clubs have extra cap flexibility this summer. But looking through the list, I mean, you got Marco Rossi. I don't think he's a perfect fit because he's not quite a play driver. He's more of a complementary piece, but he's a young top six center.
Can I give you a name? Can I give you a name?
Yeah, go for it.
If the Jets re-sign Nikolai Ehlers, which is going to cost them a lot of money, I'm immediately offer sheeting Gabe Vilardi.
He's a winger though.
Still
Pure
offer
winger.
sheeting him. Still offer sheeting him.
They probably match. The Jets have so much cap flexibility this summer.
But if they sign Ehlers, are they going to want to? Are they going to want to match that? This is the career year for Gabe Vilardi. Do you believe that this is going to be his new ceiling, or do you think this is going to be something that he's going to come down from? That the Jets are going to say, no, we don't want to match this because we don't think he's going to be able to repeat what he's done this year, where he's a near point per game player.
Well, then do you want to be the team as the Canucks that makes that lucrative, expensive bet on him? Especially a guy that has injury history.
Yes, because we don't have as many wingers as the Jets do. If I'm the Canucks, that's how I look at it.
I just don't see that working out. I mean, the Jets, I'm looking through right now. They have oodles and oodles of cap flex. You'd have to overpay a ton to even make them think about it. And to me, he's another complimentary winger.
But also,
right? on that top line with Scheifele and Connor, he's the third best player. Now, Vilardi's an excellent net front scorer, right? He's got great hands there. He's been an incredible fit on the power play. But how much better is he than, let's say, Brock Besser? He's also slow. Like Vilardi and Besser aren't that far apart stylistically as players.
One's going to cost you a lot less.
I mean, we'll see. I don't know if Vilardi's really going to get that huge monster contract.
Yeah, and that's the thing
because of his durability concerns.
When it comes to offer sheets, though, like let's not forget, as we talk about teams having flexibility, there are also numbers that teams are just going to look at and say, no, we don't really want to match that. Like that's the whole point of the offer sheet, is so that RFAs have some way to not just get lowballed by their teams that have their rights. So if a team is willing to go, it's the same principle as free agency, right? Like if a team is willing to go to a certain number and you come in with an offer sheet that's higher than they're willing to go, yeah, they might have the cap space to do it, but it's not a foregone conclusion that they're going to match it just because they have the money to do it.
Fine, but I don't want to be the team that buys high on Vilardi.
That's fair. Okay, fair enough. Canucks do need wingers though. Like let's not lose sight of that. They do need wingers more than anything.
Do they need a slow net front scorer coming off a career best season?
Are you talking about, are you talking
well, let's see. No, I'm talking about Vilardi.
Yeah, for a lot less money. Like, what are we talking about?
Okay. It's not going to be way less money because again, you have to overpay Vilardi for Winnipeg to not match.
Pirate Pack bet Gabe Vilardi's next contract is 6 or under.
6 or under?
Yeah. You think it's more than that?
It could be, man. Why not?
I don't think the Jets are signing him for more than that.
They may not give him the term, but why is he not a $6.5-7 million player? Brock's 6.65. Vilardi's over 6 cap hit wise.
Okay.
He's got 61 points,
Pirate
27
Pack?
Goals this year.
Pirate Pack. Okay. Jacob, write it down.
I already wrote it down.
Attaboy. Awesome. People are asking for an update on Filipino concussion. We don't have any sort of update yet. He's not going to travel with the team. They're hoping to know more. Or wait, was it said that he's not going to travel with the team?
I don't recall.
Tocchet might give that official update tonight. I'm not sure if that was said today. So I don't know if that's true yet. But I would assume that if Hedl is away from the team, which he is right now, and he's dealt with these before, the Canucks have to be careful here. Like, with the long road trip coming up, I'm assuming Hedl isn't going to be traveling with the team. But who knows? Maybe Tocchet says something tonight to the contrary. So this offer sheet idea, though, I do like the idea when you are looking at free agents, when you look at how thin it is and maybe you don't want to give up assets to go get a guy on the trade market. I do like the idea of exploring the offer sheets. I hope everybody's active.
If there's a winger, I would offer sheet, it'd be JJ Peterka.
Oh, yeah.
He's a guy that was in trade rumors. To me, he's more of a dynamic driver, right? He's really speedy. He can create shots and chances for himself. that's a type of winger I'd wanna bank on. He's 23 years old. He had 28 goals and 50 points last season, 51 points in 61 games this year. If the Sabres, for whatever reason, are lukewarm on him and committing big long-term money to young player, which normally if you're the Sabres, you should commit to a piece like Paterka, but they've been burned a little bit and criticized for how early they gave a long-term extension to Cousins, Owen Power to a certain extent. Like, they've seen some of their promising young players have one or two good years, sign the big contract, and then regress, and then they kind of, those contracts don't look great. Matthias Samuelsson too. So yeah, that'd be a name to target, whether it's via trade or via offer sheet.
Matthew Nyes, people bringing up the Matthew Nyes offer sheet. I love this. This is gonna be fun over the next couple months. Okay. Anything else that we needed to get to? Anyone else?
Don't think so.
Oh, this one from A HUD. UFAs are pretty thin. The Nucks defense is actually pretty solid. Is it wild to think that the Nucks need to package Willander to land a top game breaking forward? I think it might be a little too short-term thinking to say, oh, it's good right now. Go ahead. Like, Willander on an ELC, you're hoping can be a real impact player for you. And even that second contract, obviously. But on an ELC, you're hoping can be a real impact player. That's an interesting question, but I don't know if I'm looking at Tyler Myers and saying, yeah, see, everything's fine. You don't need to bring Willander in and have him come in and be great for you. I don't know. I don't know about that one personally. I'd probably keep Willander.
I lean towards that too, but look, he's not an untouchable, and
yep,
it all depends on who's that top game breaking forward, because if there's a player with a high enough ceiling, then you have to consider it.
Yep, that's a good way to put it. Everybody has a price. Jacob, do you have something that you want to say?
Yeah, so I'll point out, and I'll bring the graphic up on screen. So BU is playing on Thursday against our friend Ryan Tattle. You can see him right there on the graphic. He was on our show earlier in the year. His Yukon Huskies play Boston University, led by Tom Willander, on Thursday. So this is a semifinal matchup in the conference. The way that the NCAA tournament works is all the conference winners get automatic bids, and then there's 10 at-large spots. So Boston University losing in a semifinal with the season they had would still be a fringe team to actually get selected for the tournament. Selection Sunday is this Sunday, the 23rd. So even if Boston University loses on Thursday, don't expect the Canucks to sign Tom Willander Friday morning. They're going to wait until Sunday because Boston University may still be alive for an at-large berth into the NCAA tournament. Sunday afternoon, after the selection show, if Boston University is done, their season is over, Tom Willander will be available to sign an NHL contract should he choose to do so.
Love it. Situation to keep an eye on. Obviously, we'll have it updated over at CanucksArmy.com. All right, final thoughts from either of you?
No, not
All right.
much.
Let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day, which is brought to you by, you guessed it, Bet365. Called it last night. The Minnesota Wild beat the LA Kings as the Canucks try to catch up to the Kings for that third spot in the Pacific Division. What do we like here tonight? Ooh. Jacob, do you like the Habs? Are they fighting right now?
They are. The Habs are 1 point back of the Rangers with 2 games in hand for the second wildcard spot. So they are right in there.
Okay, so they're facing the Ottawa Senators tonight. Habs are hosting the Sens. I think I like me some Montreal Canadiens tonight. I think I'm going to go for that. I think I'm going to do it. I am taking the Montreal. Oh, no, I'm not. Sorry, Jacob. I found better odds.
Breaking my heart.
Sorry. Well, you'll get it. I found better odds, okay? The Utah Hockey Club are trying to keep the surge for the second wildcard spot alive. They are taking on the Edmonton Oilers, who can't get a save right now, can't really get much wins right now. They're pretty heavy underdogs in Edmonton tonight. I'm taking the Utah Hockey Club plus 130 on the money line. You can get that over at Bet365. That's our bet of the day. Utah Hockey Club money line plus 130. That was our bet of the day, brought to you by Bet365, a proud partner of Canucks Conversation. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when you sign up for an account. Must be 90 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly.
By the way, your quads, your wagon flames,
Mm.
as I kind of alluded to last Friday, are falling apart here.
This is
Calgary Flames hockey team.
This is the bottom falling out of the Flames, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, right?
They did it so that he could start tonight against the Rangers, but yeah, the bottom is falling out of the Flames. It looks like.
Well, I mean, they didn't have Connor Zary, Michael Backlund's out. They had to play after the Canucks game on Wednesday. They had to play Colorado. They lost to them 4-2, got dominated 6-2 by the Leafs last night. And now they got to play the second leg of a back-to-back against a desperate Rangers team. And that too, they're going to have to turn to Dan Vladar. Man, this feels like the Flames are kind of coming apart.
Do you like chicken strips? Legendary.
Look, I'm not taking a victory lap too early. Yeah, I'm not going to jinx it like that, but seriously, they're in a bit of trouble here.
To close out today's show, rank these 4 teams in terms of likelihood of getting the final wildcard spot. 4 mid teams. We're not sitting here saying, oh, one of these teams is fantastic. Rank these 4 teams in terms of likeliness of getting the final wildcard spot. Vancouver Canucks, Utah Hockey Club, St. Louis Blues, Calgary Flames. I'll give you a hint. I just gave you them in the order that I think in terms of likeliness.
Yeah, I wasn't paying attention to what order you said them in, but
okay, so I said Vancouver, Utah, St. Louis, Calgary. I have Calgary at the bottom.
The same order I have. Literally
comes down to nobody else has Quinn Hughes. Thatcher Demko's coming back. Canucks should be getting a boost while all those other teams stay about the same. Think the bottom
schedule is hard though.
Yeah, it is.
They probably have the toughest schedule in terms of quality of opponents.
St. Louis is the easiest, right? And sorry, I've interrupted you a lot today, but St. Louis is the easiest, correct? Like, am I thinking that right when I looked at it last?
It is. They do have an easy schedule coming up. I don't know if it's easiest per se, but they played Nashville 3 times over the next week and a half. They play Nashville tonight. They play Nashville,
Pittsburgh, Kraken,
Blackhawks.
Oh, I didn't even see the Blackhawks.
Yeah, so Blues have a pretty favorable schedule. They don't have Colton Parayko, though. So without their best defenseman, that's obviously a big blow for them. Canucks, meanwhile, you look at their schedule. They obviously have Winnipeg tonight, but they still got games against Rangers, Devils.
Winnipeg again.
Winnipeg again. They got 2 more games left against Vegas. They got Dallas. They got Colorado. They got Minnesota. The only sort of soft games they have through the remainder of the regular season are probably Seattle, Anaheim, and San Jose.
And can you really call Anaheim soft anymore? I know they
seriously
cooled down a little bit, but in the calendar year, the Anaheim Ducks have been a pretty good hockey team.
Yep. All right. Gonna be interesting. It's gonna be an interesting final race. That's the thing. This is what they wanted. They're getting it. It's gonna be an interesting final race for the playoffs. It all starts, or continues, I should say, tonight when the Canucks take on the Jets. We will be back tomorrow to break it down. Jeff Patterson's, of course, is going to join the show tomorrow. But we will close it out there for my co-host, Harman Dial, and our technical producer, Jacob Lazar. My name is David Quadrelli. Thank you so much for this episode of Canucks Conversation.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.